Good afternoon, this is Pat Walker, Mission Winners, doing a video overview for everybody on the ETFs. Why do we look at the ETFs? Well, here's a fact for you, not an opinion, a fact. Leading groups produce leading stocks, and leading stocks produce leading groups. By looking at the ETFs, we can frame up a good idea of where there is weakness, areas to avoid, but also where there is strength, areas to potentially concentrate on for buys to make money. That's why we do this. So let's take it from the top. This is sorted alphabetically, all right? So just, I don't want you to think it's sorted by rank, relative strength rank or anything. Robotics has been strong. This is weekly on the left, as I said, and daily on the right, and it's starting to pull back a little bit. The trend is still up, okay? The trend is still up, remember that. But it is falling on a slight pickup in volume here, steadily pickup in volume. Indicates selling, tells you to be a little cautious with that group. Continue onwards. Cloud computing. This has been a leading group, CLOU, and you can find out by clicking on CLOU, you can find out what are their top 10 holdings. That's where money's been going, and it has been going, and we've been involved with things in that area. Rallies up, it's pulling back. Notice this, goes up on good volume, pulling back on less volume, above the rising 21-day. So that group is still technically okay. Continue onwards. I'm not saying buy it, but it's still okay. Diamonds are hanging in, as you can see. Hold on, I clicked the wrong one. Let's get back to it. Diamonds are still hanging in there, okay. In fact, watch this, and this is an important point for you. But remember, this is only 30 stocks. It's only 30. But even on Friday, it had not taken out Thursday's lows, and it was down on lower volume than it went up on. It tells us that the Dow stocks, select Dow stocks, are acting a little bit better. There we go, something to maybe look into. Continue onwards. Dow Jones Internet, still hanging in there. It's pulled back at a little bit here, but on low volume. But the trend is still up. So that tells you on FDN, you can punch that up and say, some internet stocks are acting okay. That's good to know. IBD 50 is still trending up. Ran up, put a big reversal bar in here. It's pulling back a little bit. The trend is still up on the IBD 50. Maybe look at some of those. Dorsey, First Trust Dorsey Wright Technology. This is hanging in okay also. All right, support on the ADMA. So, oh, maybe there's some areas there to look into. You could punch up FV and see what their top 10 holdings are. Potential opportunities there. China, a little sloppy here. Do a compare and contrast. Well, that kind of looks like it's going up. That kind of looks choppy. What does that say? Here's a very important point. This is a tail bar, runs up and drops. Tail bar, runs up and drops. Tail bar, runs up and drops. Tail bar, the same thing here. There's sellers up there. Be careful with Chinese stocks. There we go. By the way, when I say that, I'm not getting political. I'm just looking at the charts and doing a rational, objective analysis for potential opportunities and areas to be careful with. Gold miners, a little choppy here. Okay, be careful with gold miners. They're losing a little bit. You can see they were strong, but they've lost some strength on the weekly and the daily. Be careful with gold miners. Gold, same situation. Was acting okay, and I'm going to show you something here that will help you. There it is. Clean and simple base there, folks. Form and a handle went up on heavy volume, pulled back on less volume. Potential opportunities could be coming in gold. Not at this moment, but eventually, all right? Something to keep an eye on. Gold and gold mining stocks. There you go. Biotechnology's hanging in there, all right? You can see, look at the weekly and the daily. That's hanging in there. Maybe there's an opportunity there. No real clean spot here on the ETF itself, but biotechnology's hanging in. Good to know. Oil and gas, look at this. Look at the move in this. Isn't that nice? And yeah, get involved with oil and gas. It's still hanging in. Schlumberger, I do believe, is in that group. That should sound familiar to a lot of you. There you go. Let's continue onwards. Software technology. Technology software. It's still trending nicely, folks. What does this say? Maybe look into some technology and software stocks. See, there's power there to know that. There we go. Let's continue onwards. Medicine. Look at that. That's hanging in. That hit highs for the move. That's good to see. You could punch up IHI and say, what do they own? Look at the weekly base. There's potential entry there on something maybe. Now, you can say, well, what about this one, Pat? It's a little bit extended. All right. It's up on good volume, but it's a little bit extended. Be very careful chasing extended stocks. That's a valuable point right there, folks. By the way, for those that don't know, I was an IBD Meetup co-leader for 12 years. I taught this every month, things to look for, things to avoid. So just to let you know where I'm coming from. Mid-cap still trending. Look at that. I've shown you some that look pretty rough. You can see these tops right here too. And watch this. There's a great lesson on the weekly chart, and it's not fancy. This is what we love at Mission Winners. It's simple. You don't need fancy. There it is. You said, wow, that's kind of hanging in there. It's coming up to resistance. What does it need to do? The best thing it could do on the weekly and the daily is form a little handle, and it looks like it is. By the way, you see where this rallied up to that line on the weekly? And look at the daily. Rallies up there, and then boom, they take it right back down. Do you think we're the only people in the world that look at weekly charts? This is the perfect example of why we look at daily charts and weekly charts to frame up action. Best thing this could do is form a little handle here and take off. There we go. Continue onwards. Aerospace and defense, big tail bar here, folks. Look at it on the weekly. Big tail bar. It's pretty choppy here. I'd leave this alone for right now, okay? Fell on very heavy volume there too. Be careful with aerospace defense stocks. Continue onwards. Home construction. It's been a great trend. And yeah, we've been heavily involved in at least 4 home building stocks. And they've trended nicely for us. Leading groups and leading stocks. And the chart was telling you, hey, you might want to take a look at some of the stocks in my group. And we did. Continue onward. Growth is still hanging. S&P 500 growth. IBW. This one's hanging in too. Fell on pretty heavy volume on Thursday though. Really heavy volume. If this loses the 80, you may say, uh-oh, there's further weakness in the market. We'll have to watch and see. I'm not saying it's going to, but we always have a plan. Continue onward. But S&P 500 growth, bottom line is it's still trending nicely. Small cap still trending nicely, pulling back a little bit, but it's been acting pretty good with small cap stocks. That's good to remember. Real estate, that's hanging in too. Look at the base on this. What does that say? Real estate. Oh, let me think here. What's some real estate? Oh yeah, maybe some home building stocks. See how we connect the dots? It's not fancy, it works. Here we go. Transportation. Look at transportation trending nicely. Isn't that great? Back here I would have been saying, maybe we should look at some transport stocks. You could punch up IYT and see what their top 10 holdings are, and I guarantee you there were some stocks in there. Well, you can tell. Look at the ETF and what it did. That's good to know. Weekly and daily. By the way, right now it's a little extended. Be careful with that. All right? Airlines hanging in there, forming a little base right there. Jets going sideways right here. Little choppy here. Big reversal bar here on the daily. Big reversal bar here on the weekly. Indicates selling. So be careful with that group at this point in time. Regional banking's trending nicely. A lot of overhead supply on the weekly. You look at the daily and say, oh, this looks pretty good. I guess this is a buy. But then you look at the weekly and say, yeah, it looks good, but man, there's a lot of overhead supply. A lot of sellers could come into it. Something to be aware of. At Mission Winners, that's the stuff we look at. That's why we look at the weekly and the daily. Well, the daily looks pretty good. Overhead supply, big time on the weekly. Just things to consider. And I'll get rid of this for us. My fault. Excuse me. There we go. The S&P mid-cap stocks. That's hanging in. Oh, maybe looking at some mid-cap stocks. That's nice to know. Continue onwards. Oil services, hanging in. OIH, another energy oil service stock. Look at this. This hit highs for the move on the daily and came close to highs for the move on the weekly. Isn't that neat? Now, I'm not saying buy it here, but we've been involved with energy stocks. As you know, I pointed it out with another ETF, and you can see why we have oil services. Good. Pharmaceuticals picking up a little bit. Look at the daily. Look at the volume pickup on that bar. And then look at the weekly and look at the volume on the weekly. Maybe looking at some pharmaceutical stocks. That's good to know. By the way, I have to stress something here. Remember, the M in canceling, the markets. The M in mission winners, the markets. It comes first for a reason, the markets. Don't argue with the markets. Here's QLD dropping here, dropping some fairly heavy volume on the weekly too. Needs to find some support here. Until this starts to pick up, I'm just going to lay it out there. Be careful with NASDAQ 100 stocks. Be careful with growth stocks. That's what we do at Mission Winners. We don't argue with the markets. We get in line with them. Continue onward. QQQ, same situation. Look at the heavier volume, selling volume on the daily. Be cautious with that. Retailing's hanging in there. It's gappy, but it's also saying, oh, maybe looking at some retailing stocks. And it's been saying that for a while. Continue onwards. Hold on a second. Excuse me. Silver, some leadership there, okay? You can see it on the weekly and the daily. Little, it's gappy, okay? But silver doesn't look too bad. Maybe looking at some of those. Steel doesn't look too bad. Look at the weekly and the daily. Doesn't look bad. Look into some steel stocks. Semiconductors was acting good, but again, technology related. I pointed out QLD, QQQ. Look what SMH did, semis. If you were in semiconductor stocks, you would have seen stalling up here, started to fall on a pickup in volume here. I'm going to give you a great lesson. It's like, oh, it's acting pretty good. Yeah, or here. It's acting pretty good. It's a reversal down. Got to be a little careful. Oh, it picked up again on decent volume. We're okay. It's hanging in there. It's kind of going sideways. Oh, it started to pull back here on a slight pickup in volume. Better be careful with that. Boom. That's what we do at Mission Winners. Just looking at the daily charts, price and volume bars talk, and we get in line with them. And now we have just a quiet inside bar, support on the 20-day. Maybe it'll lift. But that was some selling on that bar, folks, and it closed near the lows. So something to be aware of with semiconductor stuff. Spiders are hanging in there, still trending, okay? Went up and fell on fairly heavy volume here. Still okay. It's okay. So what does it say? Well, the S&P 500 is still trending up. That's good to know. Continue onwards. SSO, same situation. Still trending up. But note this fell on pretty heavy volume here on Thursday. Also note, there hasn't been a lot of push in a lot of leading stocks recently, right? We combine those variables together to make good investing decisions. And that helps us, keeps us safe. Solar, look how choppy, look how loose this is. Look at this. Tail bar, tail bar, tail bar, tail bar. And another one, I'm not trying to be obnoxious here, and another one. What's that tell? There's a seller up there, folks. There's a seller. Be careful with solar and solar stocks. That's good to know. Small caps, another small cap ETF, the leverage one, doesn't look too bad. Uranium, not a lot of leadership. Be careful with that. Oil, this is hanging in. U.S. oil, not bad. Okay, maybe look into some oil stocks. That's good to know. Continue onwards. Consumer discretionary has trended nicely. Isn't that great? But it's pulling back here a little bit. It says be careful, okay? Just be careful. Airline and aerospace and defense is hanging in there. Not too bad. Not in very bad shape. A little choppy though here too, okay? Be cautious. Here we go. Biotechnology, another biotechnology ETF, down, okay? Be careful with this. Look at this, down. Stay away from stuff like this. Focus on strength that'll make your life better. Help you make more money. Home builders. Oh, that looks pretty good here on the weekly and the daily. And as I said earlier, yes, that's why we own, I think, at least 4 home building stocks right now. And they're trending for us. And it's not because we're so brilliant. It's because the charts were telling us, hey, you might want to look at some home building stocks. And we were. And we bought them. And they're trending. That's it. It works. Materials, that one's hanging in also. Now, let's think about this. How do you build things? Oh, that's right. How do you build houses? Oh, you need materials. And look what it's doing. Communication services was doing okay, but then it started to drop. Overall, the market action is a little sloppy here. Err to the side of caution. I just wanted to share that with you. Energy's still hanging in. Okay, look at this. That's good to see. We've been some energy stocks. That's good. Okay, it's telling you to. But there still needs to show more power on the weekly, okay? And I'm not saying buy this now, but it doesn't look too bad as far as the sector is concerned. Financials are hanging in nicely. Look at that. And that's good to see. You like to see financials acting okay. Money's moving into it. There's no spot to buy it right now, but you could look into some financial stocks to see if there's a setup there for you. Goldman Sachs could be part of that, which has had a good move. Industrials are hanging in too. Look at that. Isn't it nice to see? Just trending. It's industrial stocks. I could punch up XLI, find out the top 10 holdings. Maybe there's an opportunity there. That's good to know. Technology's hanging in, but notice tail bar on the weekly, some selling here. Folks, I need to share this with you, and this is for everybody. We have big earnings coming this week, okay? It is important to know earnings dates and earnings times. Some stocks report before the open. That is a rude surprise if you don't know it. So just be aware of it. And again, big tail bar here on the weekly and some selling volume on the daily. technology. It's still trending up, but you got to be a little careful with it. Let's continue onward here. I'll speed it up. Consumer staples is hanging in there. That's not too bad. Look at that. By the way, what is this? It's kind of a defensive sector. Consumer staples, all right? Toilet paper, toothpaste, things you got to have no matter what's going on. Defensive, and it's acting okay. Tells you maybe to be a little cautious too. Healthcare, lifting off nicely. Kind of a defensive group too, isn't it? Defensive sector. You got to have healthcare no matter what. There you go. And look at the lift here and here. You can punch the XLV and see if there's any opportunities there. Consumer discretionary, that's discretionary. It's not it's stuff you don't have to have. And it's underperforming a little bit versus the other consumer sector that I just showed you, necessities. See the difference? That's collecting the dots. Metals and mining, kind of hanging in there, not too bad. Oil, energy. And yeah, we've been involved with energy. There you go. Retailing, hanging in there too, not too bad. Software, hanging in, not too bad. And the MAXLIST. The MAXLIST are big institutional names that money can really flow into at the right times. A lot of money can be made with these stocks if you hone your skills to buy at the right time. And through the years, we've tried to really capitalize on that. So here we go. There's Apple. Apple's been really good to us and been a great run. You see the weekly here? See that base right there? And look at the trend. Trends pay more than anything else. And we've owned this and we've sold some. We bought more. We've sold some into strength. We're in good shape. We'll watch it and see what happens. Price alerts are set. Now, I'll just show you this. We had an entry back in here, okay? And I'll draw it for you. Clean and simple flat bases. Love them. Lift it off. Now, looking here, I'll make this bigger. It's trending nicely. But note, I'll say it again. Big earnings coming here, all right? And it fell on a pickup in volume on Friday. It tells us, be cautious. There's no clean buy here at this point in time. I'll make this bigger for you so you can see it. Let's continue onward. Amazon has been a great run. Here's the weekly. Here's the daily. We've ridden this. We've sold some in it. We bought more. We've sold some into strength. It's just basing here on the 21-day. What's it going to need? These stocks are going to need a good market and a good lift. That's what we need to see. Continue onwards. Alibaba, lift it up, gap down. A little choppy here. Be careful with that. Maybe forming a handle, but it's loose right now. You're not going to see this set up in any chart book saying, oh, this is what you look for to buy. Okay, it's a little too loose. This is a big tail bar here. Always note this. Just because it's a green bar doesn't mean it's a good bar. Gapped up, ran up, and closed near the lows. Some selling action. Be careful. BIDU, there's no leadership here. Leave it alone. You can say, boy, you went fast on that. I'm going to go back to this and just share it with you. If it's not there, it's not there. Don't look for it. Don't try to find something that's not there. That will really help you. Google, earnings coming, fell. By the way, I'll say it again. We've got big earnings coming this week, folks. I really mean it. Be aware of that. And I'm not saying they're going to be bad, and I'm not saying the reaction is going to be bad. I'm just saying it could be. So just be aware. But it might be good too. But buying just before earnings, it's like gambling. All right? We don't do that. Admission winners, we don't do that. So this is hanging in, okay, as you can see. But note, fell. And you can say, oh, and this is a valuable lesson for everybody. Oh, it's a green bar. It must be a good bar. I'd like you to look closely. It gapped up, ran up, closed at its midpoint for the day on a pickup in volume. It was met with selling pressure, folks. All right? Be aware of that. That's admission winners. That's the stuff we look for. And it's not fancy. It's simple and conceptually correct. Let's continue onwards. Goldman Sachs has been acting okay. All right, MAXLIST stock been lifting up nicely. There's an opportunity there. Now, is there an opportunity now? No, not really. Okay, not really. It's a little bit extended. Let it form a handle in here, then there might be an opportunity. But at this point in time, it's extended. Be cautious with that. Never chase that. MasterCard has been a good run. It's pulling back a little bit. It's kind of loose in here too, okay? Down on heavy volume, up on less volume, down on a pickup in volume. It's just a little loose, maybe support on the 8 MA, but nothing great there. Meta has been a great run. Here's the weekly. I mean, look at, here was a base right here for us, folks. We'll call it 239. 239, up to over 300. There you go. There it is. It's working. Is there anything to do with it now? Possibly bouncing off the ADMA. That's an aggressive setup. Please, everybody, remember this. The most reliable setup to make money is a clean and simple flat base entry. Pullback setups are reliable, but not as reliable as the other setups. Be aware of that, okay? Just be aware of that. Also note, needs to bounce here off the ADMA and do it with volume. That's what we need to see. Continue onwards. Meta's been a great run. Here's the weekly. That's been, watch this, you'll love this. First buys down here at around 195. 195 to 200. And note the trend. That's what we look for. Now here it is now. We've sold some more, okay? And we're just being cautious with it. And look what it did here. See that? And that's why we sold more. We sold more in this part too. So right now it has a support a little bit below the 21 day. There's nothing to do with it, okay? Let's just play it out and see what happens. Would I recommend buying it? No, there's no real clean spot here, so leave it alone. Microsoft, same situation. This lifted off, starts to pull back. We don't argue with price, folks. You get a, it runs up, you sell some into strength, it keeps falling. Don't let, this is an important lesson for everybody. Never let a good profit turn into a loss. If you bought it up there, don't, it runs up here, you're up 14 points. Don't take it down to where you're losing money. By the way, also note this, just looking at the daily charts. You don't, let's look at the 5 minute. No, we don't need to do that, okay? Continue onwards. Netflix, look at that bait. Now down lower, we're in good shape, okay? See that cup with a handle? Look at that lift. That is sweet potato pie. Entry right here around 350, 353, and it runs all the way up to over 430, 440, over 100-point gain. This is a daily chart. Maneuvering here, and this is the result of earnings. And what's the lesson there? And I say this all the time. Always know the earnings dates. Always. You might even want to know the earnings times because some stocks report before the open. Did we sell some into strength before then? Yes. Yes. So it's still in good shape. The trend is still up, okay? But good investment management helps us. Continue on. Nothing to do with it at this point in time. NVIDIA has been a good move from back here in the higher low setup. There's a spot right in here. And that, we'll call it like 160, 170 up to over 4. Well, it was up 300 points, folks. That's it. Good entries and trends pay. Is there anything to do with it right now? No. No, just got to leave it alone and let the dust settle and see what happens. Let's continue onwards. Tesla. Tesla was a good move. Sold the last shares and made the money. Look at the base breakout. Look at the trend on the weekly. Look at the trend on the daily. And what did this, folks? Earnings. And this is an important lesson for everybody. Never argue with earnings. Never. And always be defensive before earnings. It can really cause a problem. There you go. So there's a valuable lesson there, by the way. Live off your investments and support a family of 6, and you'll know what I mean. Okay? These are a little choppy here. I'd be cautious with that.
Thank you for watching the video. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please hit like. Maybe hit that subscribe button. We come up with new content nearly every day. Also, check out the videos on the right. YouTube recommends the one on the top, and the bottom one is something we thought you might enjoy. See you next time.